So growing up, football wasn't your first love, was it?
No, no. You know, as a kid, I played everything. Whatever was in season was my sport. But really, my first love was basketball. And so actually, it's funny. It's a funny story. I played basketball all the way up until ninth grade. And in ninth grade, football, all my buddies went to play football. And so I was stuck with nobody to play with. And so they all went to camp. They were like a week into camp. And they're like, Aaron, I didn't have anybody to play pit basketball with. So they're like, Aaron, why don't you play football? And I'm like, guys, I don't really want to play football. I'm a basketball guy. So then I decided to go out for football, and I'm pretty good at football. I'm playing free safety and wide receiver and tight end at the time, right? And then halfway through the year, they moved me up to varsity, and we're the #1 team in the state and varsity. And I'm playing a little bit, and so basketball season starts, they have tryouts because we're deep in the playoffs. And I'm like, I don't want to play football no more. So I went to the coach and actually quit during the playoffs. And he looked at me like, are you crazy? We're going to win the state championship. We might get a ring. And I'm like, I don't care. I want to go play basketball. He's like, are you out of your mind? We don't move freshmen up. So I didn't even play. So I quit. I go play basketball. My sophomore year, I didn't even play basketball or football. They begged me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to play football. So I didn't even play my sophomore year in high school. So really, I didn't play my first 2 years of high school. Going into my junior, my high school basketball coach, who's probably the closest thing to a father I had, comes to me and says, you're pretty good at football. You should probably play both. You could double your options. So I go out, and I make All-State in both my junior and then my senior year. And then I had to choose which one to do. And my high school basketball coach, he said, you know, there's 22 starters in football. There's only 5 in basketball. And, you know, a 6'5" guy in basketball is pretty common. It's not common in football. And that's where it kind of led me to football. I didn't really, to be honest with you, fall in love with football till college. And then when I got to college, and that's when I started to fall in love with the sport.
So now you get to Northern Colorado. How do you go from there to the NFL? What happened? I mean, that's obviously a big school.
No, so when I got to Northern Colorado, I was a basketball guy. I never lifted a weight. I never trained. I only did football just during football season. Everything else was basketball, nonstop. And so I got there, I obviously had the red shirt because I was 205 pounds playing defensive end. I wasn't playing basketball. I put 35 pounds on that first red shirt year just because I was lifting, coming from a single home where I was probably eating 1 meal a day. And then you go to my red shirt freshman year after being redshirted, and I wind up starting 4 years. And we went 2 back-to-back national championships, All-American, Defensive Player of the Year in the country. Like, and 1 year, I think it was my junior year, all the way we were a national champion, I had 22.5 sacks. Then I wind up entering the draft and then go to the Steelers, which is funny because, you know, when you get drafted, you have all these perspective, like, oh, this team's interested, your agents tell you. And I don't remember the Steelers ever being on that list. You know, and it's kind of like when they call, it was kind of like, whoa. There's a surprise. And when you think, I thought I was going to Philly or I was going to Seattle or Arizona, and I wind up here.
So you're a basketball guy. Were you aware of the Steelers? I mean, did you follow the NFL? Did you know what kind of a team you're going to?
Yeah, I was still a football fan. And obviously, what's funny is the Steelers were one of my favorite teams. Even growing up in Colorado, I didn't like the Broncos. Me and one of my brothers loved the Steelers through and through. And I actually loved the Steelers like when Kevin Green was here and Greg Lloyd. Kevin Green was my favorite player at 91. So for my birthday, one of my best friends gave me those 8x10s you can buy of players. I got a picture of Kevin Green, you know, and so, which was funny because you fast forward when Kevin was helping out at camp, Kevin Green came up show, and we were actually hanging out in the pool between one practices one time. And I'm like, hey, I don't want to make this weird and awkward, but like, you were my favorite player growing up. That's why I kind of chose 91. And he's like, oh, you know, Kevin, oh, that's cool, you know. But it just was kind of funny how that worked out. That was always one of my favorite teams growing up.
Now you had to play a specific style. You're asked to absorb blocks. You didn't have the freedom that we see now in today's 3-4. You had 44 sacks. You'd had double that if you were playing in a different system, if you were playing a 4-3.
I like to think so. So like when I was at Northern Colorado, we played a 4-man front, and I was on the end, and you just shot the gaps, got upfield, made plays, right? And so then when I first got here, and they said, listen, I want you to line up in front of this guy who's 4 inches taller than you, 50 pounds heavier than you, and then take him on and the other guy and just hold them so his backer. I was like, you out of your mind. Like that makes no sense. So as you learn the system works, and like me and Hamp were talking, I would rather win 2 Super Bowls than have 12 sacks a year. You know what I mean?
Well, you got plenty. You made a Pro Bowl. That's not easy to do as a 3-4 tackle or end or whatever you want to call it.
I'm not complaining, but there was times like where I had to play the B gap. So I was inside the tackle. I had to play the B gap on the run. When I realized it was pass, I had to cross completely across the tackle to get outside to the C gap for contain, which tells you like you're not going to make you have no chance of getting the sack. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of humble yourself and buy into the system, and that's just. And I was lucky because the guys I played with made it easy to buy into the system. You know, you have great players around you, people that you love and you admire, and you trust that they're going to make the play. You do your job, and they'll do their job. Give me that!
Before I get on to the team stuff, I have to say this. You made the Sports Illustrated All-Decade team. And again, when you think about a 3-4 defensive tackle, defensive end, that has to show you what kind of respect there was for you as a player around the league because you didn't have the opportunity to put up the same statistics because of the style of defense you were asked to play.
That was quite the honor. When I got named on that one, I was kind of shocked. I knew what my position required and the stats that I put up compared to what these other guys are getting to do. For the people of the football community to recognize that and see what I was able to do, it was humbling and honoring, to be honest with you, to be on that list. I mean, I think if most people probably went back and looked at that list, I'm probably the one red flag. They're like, what? Who's this guy? Like, how did he make this? But I think, you know, if football guys that know the game, they understand who's doing what. It's kind of like if you know baseball, you can watch. Some people get enamored with this guy, but you know who the guy really is that's doing the work and making things happen.
What's it like winning that first Super Bowl?
The first one was the most stress I've ever felt in my life. To explain it in context to people. So this isn't something I decided I wanted to do when I graduated college. It isn't something I decided I wanted to do when I was a senior in high school. Like this was probably 4, 5, 6. I watched my first Super Bowl and I wanted to win a Super Bowl. So if you take your entire life's work and you put it in that one opportunity in one moment and you may never get back, that kind of gives you a context of the internal pressure you place upon yourself, right? Like I've been doing this for 25, 30 years and this might be the only chance I ever get to make this happen. So yeah, I didn't enjoy the week of the game. I enjoyed the game, but I'll tell you what, after that game was done, there's nothing like it. Like it's like the weight of the world because it's off your shoulders. Like, and then to hold your children and your wife and to sit out there and hold that trophy, like to celebrate with people you care about. Like, you can't describe the feeling that it is. But I'll tell you the funny thing about it, after that day you enjoy it. You wake up the next morning, all right, back to work, time to start climbing the mountain again.
Did you enjoy the second one more because you'd been through it?
Yeah, you learn to appreciate. I think the fact that you have one, you learn to appreciate the week and the media and all the experiences you have leading up to that. And then that one's special to me because that's the year my son got sick. And so he got to come to that game, which we did not think he was going to get to go to. And he got to hold the trophy on the field too. So that was a special one to me too.
You know, another measure of respect, and we've talked about this, that because of your career and what you were asked to do, sometimes the respect had to come from outside or internally or from other sources than just the natural plaudits. But Mike Tomlin kept you on the roster when you were injured for the whole season, hoping that you'd be able to come back for the Super Bowl. That's kind of a cool measure,
it was an honor and much respect, but it was the hardest year. For me personally, and I felt good about it, but to be injured and every week come back and answer your guys' questions and everybody's questions, and then you're working and you're just not making the progress fast enough, and you know where you're supposed to be, and it was hard. It was hard. And then we were lucky. We were winning and we were very successful. But yeah, I wish I would have. If I could go back and change one thing, that I wish I would have played in that Super Bowl. That's the one memory I think, like, if I would have rode it until that arm fell off. Like I would have said, all right, let's go. I don't care.
Okay, so that's the one thing that you would have done differently. What's the one or two things you look back at with the most pride or joy when you look back at your career, whether it's your teammates or accomplishments or winning the Super Bowl or just playing in the NFL?
Probably my most proud is my relationship with my teammates. Just when you see those guys and the way we talk and care about each other and just those relationships that we built through those times, that's probably the most proud I am of it. The success I think that we had collectively and individually and the longevity of it, Because it's easy to be successful 1 or 2 years, but to do it for a long period of time it's hard, you know. And then just being the man and creating the family that I did through that process. Like when I'm retired now, so I see my kids and they all come home and my family is happy and healthy and thriving, and I know that I've done it while I played, which is not easy. It gives me a sense of pride.
The Hall of Honor, what does that mean for you?
It's unbelievable. It's humbling. I mean, it's hard to describe. Like, I didn't think I was gonna make it, to be honest with you. Like, I know how good I played. My teammates know, but for people outside to say that, it doesn't really get recognized. And I don't really care, because I know at the end of the day, I lay my head down. I know I did my job. But for them to acknowledge that, and then for an organization like the Steelers, when there's so many great players, like. There's so many players, some of the best players that ever played the game of football are part of this organization. So to be put on that wall with those guys and mentioned in the same names with some of the guys on that wall is humbling. I mean, sometimes I almost think, do I really belong with these guys? I mean, you got Joe Green, who might have been arguably the best football player to ever play football. I'm a little biased, but he might have been the best football player. And I'm standing next to him, and they're like, what did this guy, 91, do compared to this guy, you know? So. It's an honor. And honestly, the organization is probably the best sports organization in the world. At the end of the day, in my life, you win Super Bowls, you win national championships, college, you All-Americans, Pro Bowls, right? So your life doesn't really change. We all like to think it does, but you still go home and you still put kids to bed, you still mow in the yard, you still have to do those things, right? It doesn't stop. And a friend of mine told me, and this is probably the coolest thing that summed it up to me, he goes, you know, long after you're dead and I'm dead, Aaron, your face will still be on that wall. And your grandkids and your great-grandkids can still come say. Now that's when it kind of hit me, like how cool that was. Like, I'll be long gone, and my generations of my kids and grandkids will go on and they can still see it. So that really put it in perspective to me, like this is a little different, the legacy that's being left behind.